Right, okay, good evening. We're going to start with our 10th session, and our journey so far has taken us to look at some verbs and some nouns. We've been looking at prepositions, starting to build up more complex kind of phrases and sentences. And today I want to introduce you to how we describe adjectives, or how we use adjectives in Greek, and how they will be different somewhat to English, but that's fine. What we'll do, as usual, we'll go through a bit of an English grammar check to make sure we know what we're talking about in terms of adjectives. Then we'll have a look at two different types of how adjectives are used. So there's the attributive position, and then there's the predicative position, which is to do with the verb to be, which is the next section. So we'll have a look at how they work and how they differ, and I'll explain what that means when we get to it. So that's what we're going to look at this evening. So let's make a start with each other by just looking at the English grammar. First of all, to start with, we have adjectives, and an adjective is going to be a word which is used to describe a noun. When we get to it, there'll be adverbs which describe verbs. So it's going to give some extra quality, some kind of information about a noun. That's what we refer to as adjectives. And there are two ways in which an adjective can be used. So there's the attributive position, which is, if you like, expressing an attribute about the noun. So it's telling you something about the noun. So, for example, the good book. So we could just talk about the book, but we now know something more about this particular book. It's a good book. And the word good is an adjective. The word book is a noun. Okay, so the good is giving you information about the book. You can stack the adjectives, so you can use more than one if you want to describe several things about a particular noun. So the old beautiful temple, and of course it works in plural as well, the bad, evil slaves. Okay, so the words old, beautiful, bad, evil, and good in those examples are all adjectives, so they're all describing something. So what we're going to do this evening is to look at the Greek way in which we would write adjectives. We'll come back to the predicative position in a little bit, but there's another way in which adjectives are used, but we will need to look at the verb to be first, but we'll come on to that in a moment, or in the second part. Adjectives, first of all, if we think about the attributive position, just on the screen there's the word agathos, which you'll see over here highlighted. So agathos is a Greek word for good. Unlike English, where we don't tend to change the spelling for describing a different noun, we'll use a good book, a good table, a good girl, a good house. They're all the same. We don't change the spelling of good, we use good. Unfortunately, Greeks don't do that. And you'll notice that in the if you just look on the left hand side, which is these ones here, I'll just put a big thing around them. Right, if you look at those, they all describe something as being good. And so the question really is, why are the words for good spelled differently? Why would you have agathos, agathe, agathon, agathoi, agathe, agatha? All of those words I've just underlined, they all are saying the same thing in our English translation. They're all good. Now, hopefully you can kind of see the connection between the word that I've highlighted in yellow, the word good, and the noun which it's describing. If you can't translate that noun, you can see, I'm sure, that the endings are similar, and that's the key. Basically, when you want to describe a noun with an adjective, then it needs to agree. Okay, so we've talked about this before. It needs to agree in number, so it needs to be singular or plural. And it needs to agree in case. Okay, so it needs to be in the right case. Now all of these are in the nominative case, okay, and we'll deal mostly with those, but it also needs to agree in gender. Okay, so the three key things that any noun has, its number, its gender, and its case. If you want an adjective to describe a noun, then you need to make sure it's agreeing in those three things. So if we look at the examples I've got here, so we have the good son, and the son here, because it's all about the noun really, to work out how you're going to describe your adjective. So this is a masculine noun, which you can see from the article as well, and you kind of end up learning these things. So it's masculine, it's singular, and it's in the nominative case. So therefore, I need to write the word good in Greek in exactly the same thing. So it's going to have a different ending. All right. Now, fortunately, the endings are the same endings as the article endings. They all these things are quite similar. They just are a lot of them to start with. Once you've learned them, then you realize they all link up to their relevant nouns as they should. So you can see in the next one down, we have Adelphi, which is sister. And sister is feminine, and it's singular, and it's also a nominative. Okay, so it's the sort of subject, if you like. So therefore, the good is going to need to have a different ending because it's no longer a masculine noun, it's now a feminine noun. So we have a different ending, and no surprise, hopefully, it matches quite similar to what you would get for the endings for your nouns, which we've learned already. Next one down, to agathon technon. Technon is child, it's a neuter. So this one's a neuter noun, it's also singular, and again it's just in the nominative, although it could be in the accusative as well, because remember in the neuter they are the same, both the singular and the plural. The singular nominative and accusative is the same, and then this plural nominative and accusative are the same. And then you've just got the plural versions, which I've just put down here. So you've got the good sons further down. Again, you can see that the endings are all agreeing. So here we have another masculine noun, but this time it's plural, and we can go in the nominative as well. So we have a masculine nominative plural, and therefore you want agathoi. Right. And then the final two are just, again, the plural. So you've got your good sisters and the good children. Okay, so there are different endings. So therefore, there is a little chart which we can produce, and I'll just sort of show you, it's just down here at the bottom, which has a list of the different endings for adjectives. And it looks a bit overwhelming to start with because you think, oh no, there's another chart that I've got to learn. But you'll find that the majority of the endings are familiar or becoming more familiar to you, and we'll refer to those as we go through in the evening. I'll come back to that in a little bit. Okay, so how do we write something as an article? So the first one, the left hand side, which I've been talking through, is written exactly in the order that we would have worked it out in English. Okay, just the good son, it's in that order. But Greek has a second way of writing adjectives. So it may well choose to switch. Okay, and this is going to take a little bit of getting used to, especially when you start reading Greek text. So the second type, which is just saying exactly the same thing, has the adjective second, but it can only be referring to the noun which precedes it if there's an article. So the article actually represents a bit more than just the word the, all right? And you're going to see this come up a little bit as we go through, and as you get sort of deeper into the Greek, the article's quite an interesting little sort of marker within the Greek text. So just have a look at what we've got here. So we have the adjective on the second side, but notice that it's now got an article with it, and in some ways you can think of these, coming back to the first bit, the article kind of sits with the noun. So it's the son, and if we took agathos out, then we could just say, well, we sort of talk about the son. Okay, I'm just describing a bit more about the son. So here, literally, this is saying the son, the good. All right. Now, obviously, we don't write that as good English. It doesn't mean that. What it's saying is it's saying the good son. So there's a second way of describing nouns, right, by using an adjective. And this is the second type. And it's really important that we pick up here that it must have the article. Okay, it needs to have an article, and it obviously needs to agree as well, in exactly the same way as we've been talking about. So I've just circled all of the articles that go with each of the adjectives which I've just been describing. Okay, so they're all the same word for good, but they're describing a different noun, so they have a different ending. All right, so you've got two different things to look out for, and at the moment they're all just in the nominative case. Okay, the same thing applies for all other cases, which we'll kind of come on to perhaps in a little bit. Okay, so let's see if we can maybe apply some of that with what appears to be a big list of Greek things to translate. So here's a little exercise. I'm going to give you an opportunity to have a little look at some of these if you can. It's really just a bit of translation, just to get you familiar with some of the words, and just to see the structure that we have. So there are 18 standard adjectives in this chapter. We're on chapter 5 now of the book. So I've just put them there to the side so you can refer to them. So that's the sort of next set of vocab really, which you really want to try and concentrate on learning. They are given as their adjectives. They're given in the masculine nominative case. Nominative form. All right. So obviously you only get the first word within the chart, if you like. So in terms of I'll do a couple with you, and then you can have a little go at hopefully working through some of them. They're all of a similar format. They're all using the nominative case, okay, for the moment. So the first one, if we just have a look, we'll identify first of all. We can translate the words literally. So we've got agathos again, and so we know we're talking about something which is good. So we've got the good, and then doulos, which hopefully we've used a few times, slave. Okay, so we've got the good slave. All right, so it's just literally translating as it comes is how we translate it in this particular case. All right, number 2, we've got ho agapetos adelphos. So agapetos is the word for beloved. All right, so we have the beloved, and then adelphos. Again, we're talking masculine. We've still got the same ending, as you can see. So adelphos is brother, so the beloved brother. All right, and then I'll just do one more just because it's obviously switched around. So we have a different form now. So we've got the noun first. So hohuios, hohagios. So hohuios is the son. Now, if you need to, when you're translating, write it out literally to start with, and then turn it into good English. That's a fairly standard practice. That's quite a good thing to do. So if it's easier just to write down each translated word, and then you can maneuver it around. So we've got the son, and we want to go to hagios. So we've got holy, the holy. So we're going to not write it like that, are we? We're going to say the Holy Son. All right, and that's how we would translate it and write it in good English. All right, so if you're okay, do you want to have a go at doing a few more of those for a little bit, see how you get on, and hopefully those won't be too difficult to kind of get your head around, and then we'll look at some with other cases as well in a little bit. All right, I'll stop the recording now.